Hi, so today we just had a Board of Supervisors meeting, so I wanted to quickly run through some of the key items on the agenda and share kind of how we voted and what some of my votes were and my thoughts were on a few of the items. So we started out proclaiming today, Tuesday, February 18th, as Craig Ivani Day. Craig is the longtime executive director of the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum, which is a gem in District 3 as well as county-wide, both for being an incredible education and learning institute and just a beautiful representation of the Sonora Desert. We also proclaimed the month of February as Black History Month throughout Pima County, and we were honored to have with us today Dr. Shireen Meeks, president of the NAACP, as well as Beverly Elliott, who's the executive director of the African American Museum of Southern Arizona, as well as Bob Elliott. We also had a presentation from 3 fire district chiefs, as well as the representative of the Firefighters Union. They came because at our last board meeting, we approved urging our state legislative lobbyist to see what the possibilities are for increasing the cap on the fire district tax that can be levied here in Pima County. So the chiefs and the firefighters rep came and shared with us about some of the challenges that they face, from equipment and resources and staffing to the health needs of firefighters all over Pima County. This is particularly important in District 3, given that we have such a high rural district, which, fire districts are funded through property tax. So if you live in an area that is rural and does not have a whole lot of property that gets taxed, then your fire district gets less resources. So my question is about what are the mechanisms that we could use that layer on top of or as part of any kind of increased levy for fire districts that would ensure the equitable distribution of resources to our fire districts. So places like Arivaca, Amado, Y, 3 Points, etc., have the resources and equipment necessary to respond to the increased threats around wildfires. We also got a great presentation today, and it is something that is going to now be a regular item on all of our agendas that looks at kind of the status of the Trump administration's executive orders, as well as the other efforts that are aimed at cutting, diminishing, stopping federal funding to some of our most critical human needs and services. The county, about 90% of the grants that we receive at the county are potentially impacted. 63% of the county's grants are on a reimbursement basis, which puts us even at greater risk, right? Because that means that we have to first spend the money and then we get reimbursed for it. We are concerned that if we spend those funds that we in fact may not get reimbursed for them. We have about $148 million in grants that we think could potentially be impacted by the Trump administration's just decimation or potential decimation of a lot of funding of critical resources. But the other thing to think about is that the county, a lot of our work, we don't do it in isolation. It's not just the county. We partner with academic institutions, with hospitals, social service agencies, and all of those agencies and institutions also receive federal money. So we are incredibly concerned at how the Trump administration and DOGE, with Musk's DOGE, can be impacting some of these critical services and functions of county government, but for our community overall. So we will continue to get updates on how that's playing out and impacting us as we also think about what we can do to better insulate and protect our community. We got an update as well on Pima County's Climate Action Now, also called Pima County CAN, Climate Action Now plan. Obviously, the backdrop of a climate action plan right now at the county is one in which there is the threat of no more funding for it. Climate work was one of the first executive orders that came out of the Trump administration, and halting some critical funding towards work that is trying to combat greenhouse gas emissions and convert to a clean energy economy. Nonetheless, Pima County is continuing to work with the other municipalities and stakeholders to develop a comprehensive climate action plan that looks county-wide as well as focuses on our operations. We have first focused around looking at what we can do around wildfire, heat, and drought. We are also engaging around a working group focused on water, and then layering on a focus around energy efficiency. And so all of Pima County's departments and kind of directors and key staff have been putting their minds together and developing some important comprehensive goals to ensure that we're doing our part and more to combat climate change and ensure that our community is safe and healthy and sustainable for generations to come. We excuse me, also had a great presentation today from the Tucson Airport Authority, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and the Air National Guard. This is in the context of a number of tragedies that have affected commercial air flights. And we wanted to make sure that we had a good understanding from the Board of Supervisors about the degree of communication and collaboration around our airspace. I had also asked in the meeting about the way in which the Department of Homeland Security is also part of that communication and collaboration, given especially in the rural western part of Pima County, the presence of Customs and Border Protection, both helicopters and planes and other unmanned aerial vehicles, to ensure that we are doing everything we can to prevent any loss of life or accidents. We heard a report as well from one of the county's commissions, from the Election Integrity Commission. They produced a report that was shared with the board and that we accepted and are honored to have the volunteers that staff this commission looking into the integrity of our electoral process. We spent a lot of time as well today listening to a monthly financial update presented by our finance team. And like I said, this is a monthly presentation. So the county's revenue is derived from 3 different sources. We get our revenue from local property tax, from state and federal funds, and then from departments that generate revenue. So think of like permit fees. It looks like we will be, based upon projections, we will have a $2.8 million surplus. And while that's better than a deficit, there are a lot of pressures and strains on our budget that are not necessarily causing us to celebrate that. There are also a number of, there's a few departments that are over budget. We spent some time talking today about the $4.8 million budget overage of our sheriff's department, which consistently goes above and beyond their budget. That is important because, as I mentioned earlier, the conversation about was about $168 million worth of grants housed by the county, were received by the county that are federal funds are kind of up in the air because of the Doge's and Trump administration's attempts to just dismantle the federal government. We have there's just a whole lot of uncertainty. So we also today, in the light of all that uncertainty, also looked at the supplemental budget requests of the departments and other offices throughout the county. The way that our budget setting process is working this fiscal year is that the baseline budget is just simply the same budget that departments had the previous year. So anything above and beyond that is presented as a supplemental budget and gets reviewed by the county administrator, reviewed and discussed by members of the Board of Supervisors. And we still have a number of other steps to go through in this budget process. We decided to continue our conversation and discussion around the fiscal year 25-26 budget, particularly the requests for supplemental budgets from departments and other offices. And so we will pick that conversation back up at our next meeting in March. We also approved 2 revenue contracts, one from the city of Tucson to the recorder's office. Our recorder's office does some of the support for special primary and general elections for the city of Tucson. So that was a $210,000 contract from the city to the Pima County Recorder's Office. Similarly, the county school superintendent also contracts with the Recorder's Office, with the Elections Department to provide for the school district elections. So we approved a $250,000 contract that will cover Elections Department support from July 1, 2024 through December 31 of 2028. We also, one of the things that the board does is accept, approve the acceptance of grants that departments within the county receive. So, for example, there was a grant that the Community and Workforce Development Department received, the Health Department received another, Justice Services received one, and several others. One of them I wanted to flag because there was a little bit of discussion around it. It was kind of pulled out and talked about. So it was one that the Sheriff's Department received. It's $122,000.437 from the Department of Justice. And it's for a program that is called, and my air quotes because I don't love the title, it is called the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program. Right, and I wanted to just clarify kind of what this is. I saw a little news coverage about it. And I kind of dug into it a little bit more just to make sure that I understand it. This is a grant that the Sheriff's Department receives that is a reimbursement for having folks in the jail who do not have legal status in this country. It is not a collaboration with ICE. It is not a detainer with ICE. It is simply a reimbursement for housing folks in the jail, for jailing folks, right? And the reason that they get there is because they have committed a crime. And the crime is the reason they're in the jail, not their immigration status. It is, we do not actually, our portion, our $122,000 is not all that, it's not, compared to other counties, it's not a lot. From what I've seen in a little bit of research looking at some other counties. But so we did approve that reimbursement. We had a few hearings, as we often do, liquor licenses, events, and then we had a consent calendar, which is a number of items that are approving kind of appointments to different commissions and boards, special events, having to reissue some checks to people who lost their checks. A lot of those items that are in the what they call the consent agenda are items that generally don't warrant a whole lot of discussion. They're very procedural, so they get lumped together onto the consent agenda, and we tend to approve them all in one lump unless a board member requests that any of those items get pulled out of the consent agenda so that we have the ability to discuss them more. So that was our meeting in a nutshell. It was a long one. It was a productive one. And well, until next time. And I also encourage you, if you can, they are long, but please do feel free to come to the Board of Supervisors meetings in person, or you can always watch them on the county's YouTube channel and watch them yourself. All right, thanks a lot.